and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Before we begin, I will ask Councillor Cal McLean to lead us in prayer. Cal.
Lord our God, we give thanks again for your goodness to us and bringing us here this day, and we'd ask that you would be with us as we deliberate over matters concerning the council and the authority, and we'd ask that you would bless the chair here and be with the chief executive and all his staff who go about their duty so diligently, and we give thanks for all the work that they do, and be with us as elected members as well, that we would carry out our duties correctly, acknowledging that you are God and there is none besides you. Give thanks, O Lord, for all your goodness to us, and remember especially those who are going through trying times at this period. We think of those who are searching for a young lad that has gone missing. We pray for his family at this time, so anxious about him. We pray for those who have lost other ones. We think of the McInnes girl in Uist. We ask that you would bless their family as well these times. And as we sit here and our minds think about those who are no longer with us, we think of Nigel Scott and his family in particular. At this time, we commit them to you. When we think of him over these years that we knew him as such an amicable man, when we think of those who have lost a colleague, and we ask that you would help them at this time. And the voice of death is again in our ears and comes into our hearts and comes into our lives. We give thanks, O Lord, that you are the one that is able to succor those who are going through such tragedies. We'd ask that you would bless them and be with them at these trying times. Be with us all and remember all the community. Remember those who are in need today. Grant, O God, that you would be with them. We think of those who are going through addiction of one form or another in our communities as well. We'd ask that you would remember them as well. Such a scourge that comes into our community. We'd ask, O Lord, that you would help them. Be with us, lead us and guide us. And we'd ask all for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. Just to echo the sentiment there, I think Nigel is going to be a big loss for us in the Comhairle, right from his colleagues and from members with great support over the years, and his intelligence and wisdom across all matters right to the Comhairle was greatly appreciated. So thank you for bringing that up. And I would also just like to acknowledge the difficult times our communities are facing with missing people recently. Search still ongoing for Alexander, Benga and Stornoway, and of course the search for Sanahan, McInnes and Mbekula over the weekend. I was personally involved in the search for Shannon and humbled by the response of the community in that search for it. I think at one point we had over 200 people covering the coast and land, and it was a very difficult time for the people, and it was quite difficult to be part of as well. So our thoughts are with them at this time and all their family and friends. So thank you for raising that, Colin. Start the meeting proper, so please ensure your microphones are muted on both your Teams device and your mobile device if you're listening to the translation. And if you wish to speak, only unmute your Teams device. The meeting will be recorded and will be available on the Comhairle's website following the meeting. Items 16 and 17 will be in private at the end of the meeting. I am ruling items 5, 6, 12, 13, 14, 15 and the appendix to item 11 as urgent to allow the matters to be considered prior to the next meeting of the Comhairle. So the first agenda item are the minutes of the meeting of the 25th of September, and that's for approval. Agreed. Thank you. Item 2 is declaration of interest. As usual, if you have an interest, if you could declare it at the time of the item, that would be useful and we can note it then. No declarations at this time? Sorry, Donald.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 21 is a reference to the Stornoway Trust and the shared ownership joint venture item, so I think it's best that I step aside from that.
Thanks, Donald. And Callum?
I'm not on the committee, but
I've
sent myself at that time as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other interests at this time? No. In that case, we'll move on to item 3, and that is the minute of the meeting of the Outer Hebrides Community Planning Partnership on the 14th of March 2024, and that's for noting. Do we agree? Thank you. Item 4 is the minute of the meeting of the Budget and Strategy Board of 24th October 2024, and again, that's for noting. Agreed. Thank you. Item 5, minute of the meeting of Comhairle and Gaelic on 26th of November 2024, and again, that's for noting. Agreed. Item 6, minute of the meeting of local government employee JCC of 12th November 2024. That's for noting, and also approval of the recommendation at item 4 and 6.2 of the minute. Are we happy to note and approve? Agreed, thank you. And item 7 is the minute of the meeting of the Human Resources Subcommittee of the 21st of November 2024, and that's for noting. Okay, thank you very much. If it's okay with the committee, we'll consider item 21 on the agenda at the moment. Affordable energy options reporting by Chief Planning Officer, Mr. Cunningham has to leave shortly, so if we can take that just now. Okay, thank you. So this report seeks to provide an update on ongoing work to secure affordable energy for island homes and businesses. The Outer Hebrides are one of the areas with the highest fuel poverty rates in the UK, and this situation is exacerbated by high energy prices. Once large-scale renewable energy production is underway, it may be possible for a local not-for-profit energy supplier company to procure electricity from island generators and to retail that electricity to island consumers at discount, and more detail on this is provided in the report. So I'll pass over to John to go through the report and be available to answer questions. John?
Thanks, Chair. The report's as you've described. Just by way of update, since the report was submitted to the agenda, it's largely reserved matters, so we are dealing with UK government and UK regulator. We've been engaging with both MPs, Alistair Comhairle for the Northern Isles and our own Torquil Crichton. Mr. Comhairle raised a question in the House of Commons on fuel poverty on behalf of the local councils, and we are working closely with Shetland and Orkney councils. We have an Inter-Islands Council's affordable energy group in place now and really gaining momentum. And on the back of that, Shetland Council have commissioned Message Matters, a lobbying group, to make the case to government. And that led to a meeting last week with Secretary of State Ofgem, the newly nationalised National Energy System Operator, SSEN, and a couple of energy companies. For ourselves in the Comhairle, we are talking directly to Ofgem, DESNZ, the new system operator, and SSEN, and it is possible that they might visit Lewis in springtime for an in-person meeting to see what the benefits might be of the newly designed energy in the UK, which touches on the affordable electricity. Finally, Chair, on recommendation 3.1b, we're asking permission that Muaval Trust be added to the joint venture membership. That's because for the Stornoway Wind Farm shared ownership, Stornoway Trust is there as a community interest. There is no community interest for Ushinish because it's on private estate land. So Muaval is the community interest in Ushinish. And just to regularise the two, we're asking that they be added to membership and take it forward as two shared ownerships together. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, John. Are there any questions from members? I don't see any lights. Sorry, Angus, couldn't see that. Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Mr. Cunningham for his report, which as always is detailed and very useful. What I'm hoping is that, you know, that through discussion with the national government, hopefully through GB Energy, there can be some change to the way of thinking around renewables. Since the crisis in renewables started, 12 of the big companies have gained in profits £457 billion. Now, there's something wrong with a system that allows that to happen, whilst at the same time we are paying the highest cost for electricity anywhere. And when I see statements in the paper about how much we're going to pay for our electricity, then I look at my own bill, for example, and it's almost double what's going on. So the argument that John's putting forward here has got every reason behind it as to why things should change. And it disappoints me that it's all down to a wire going that way with one name and a wire coming the other way with another name, and you designate it this way or the other, and we can't use our own electricity, and all these sort of really serious situations. I'm wondering just how far we can press. I'm sure he's doing this already, but how far we can press the argument, which I think he has alluded to in the document, that communities where the bulk of renewables is creating new energy for the future should be the areas which are first thought of by the likes of GB Energy in terms of our response to them, which is positive and helps them to dispense with fuel poverty. And I'm particularly concerned about fuel poverty because in chairing the Poverty Action Group, which report we will discuss later, the biggest thing we could do for our people in the islands is to reduce the costs of electricity. That would make a huge difference to them. There is a reference in the report to battery, and I realise that the battery that I'm thinking about just now, the one that's coming to Newton, is a different kind of battery to the one that John is thinking. Maybe he'll explain to me what the difference is between the two. My understanding is that the battery in Newton will be used to assist wind farms locally to continue to produce electricity when the route has been shut down by SSEN, for example. And it could also be used, as I understand it, to fire up if there's a break in electricity, to fire up electricity generation before the big one steps in. And it would be wonderful to have a similar battery in Lochcarnan, for example. That would help hugely. And batteries are the coming thing, of course. There are now hundreds and hundreds of batteries all over the place to allow for the fact that the wind doesn't blow all the time. What I would like to ask one question and then one further one subsequently, if you don't mind. How close, John, do you think we are? I mean, how difficult is it going to be to change? I think what we're going to have to do, if I'm right, is to change the mind of government through perhaps GB Energy in order to make sure that energy prices in areas like ours are reduced.
John, if you could come in just before you do, I was going to say that was a bold statement to say the wind doesn't blow all the time, Angus, but I suppose when we look at the when we look at the window, evidence is there. So if you just leave your microphone on, I'll bring John in as well. John.
Thanks, Chair. Just addressing Councillor McCormack's points. The first one was about, can there be a policy fix that gets us cheaper electricity on the basis of us being in the area of highest fuel poverty and the area that's with the most potential to offer renewables to grid. That's what we're pushing with government just now, that there be some kind of designation. We're thinking back to the EU, the less favoured area of the 1970s, maybe the transition region of structural funds, where there was a recognition that this area is facing structural challenges and requires a special fix through policy and government intervention. So we're hoping it's possible to do something along these lines, which would mean government intervening. A total fix, as I've noted in the report, to the situation would be a change in the network, which would only happen once we have access to our own electricity, which would be 2030, once we're generating locally. But until then, we are pushing very hard for a policy fix. There are positive moves in terms of GB Energy coming into being. They've stated that they're supporting communities and fuel poverty. And also the successor to National Grid, it used to be National Grid Electricity System Operator. It's now the nationalised National Energy System Operator, and they're taking a whole system view. It's not just electricity. So they're looking far wider at the flows that Councillor McCormack talked about and how equity across the entire network. And we have some good contacts in that organisation who we used to work with in SGN. The second point on batteries, the battery that's proposed for Newton alongside the power station, that's really to provide steady flow when the community turbines are switched off for maintenance. These community turbines are facing much longer downtime than they anticipated, and they're obviously losing income. So they could feed into this, they could keep feeding into this battery, and then the battery feeds the flow into the power station. The problem we have is that the power station here will only accept steady flow electricity. It cannot accept intermittent flows from wind turbines directly, so there has to be a balancing battery. If you move up to the island scale, I mentioned Shetland there, SSE are installing a 70 megawatt battery in Shetland. That'll only support the island network for 1 to 2 hours. That's the scale of it. So there'll probably never be a battery that'll support the entire Western Isles network. But the other thing we're looking at is hydrogen as a grid balancer. So you could produce hydrogen when the wind is blowing, store the gas, and then bring it online through a gas engine back into electricity when there's no wind. That's likely to be quite a good solution going forward. And Councillor McCormick asked how close are we to a fix. So we are pushing as hard as we can with government. We are starting to get traction. The involvement of the other islands gets us Ofgem are really taking notice of that size of customer base. So we are hopeful there will be a solution.
Thank you, John. If you just leave your mic on, just in case anyone wants to come back in. Angus?
Yes, I've actually got two more questions, if you don't mind. The second one relates to the reference in para 7.4 to using the local energy supply company, and you talk about local suppliers. I'm assuming that you mean the big wind farms that are coming in, not the community wind farms in this case. But I would have thought the community wind farms have already committed all their resources and wouldn't be able to, and indeed wouldn't necessarily make very much of a difference to the current situation. Am I right in thinking that?
Thanks, Chair. In the first instance, it would be the shared ownership in Comhairle. The community generators have to realise a reasonable margin in order to pay their borrowing.
Yeah.
And in some cases, their banks are dictating to them who they sell to. So we can't really penetrate that system. They'll continue to get return for the community.
Mm-hmm.
What we're thinking of here is the shared ownerships in Stornoway and Ishkin, and possibly donated electrons from offshore coming under the control of a local supply company, which retails that electricity locally.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you very much. And my final question, Chair, relates to the shared ownership situation. I mean, I've no issues with shared ownership. I would like to suggest, for example, that there be a further addition, and that somebody from the organisation which represents our community wind farms perhaps should sit in on this discussion as well. There might be some benefit in that. My own view is on this, that the only organisation going forward that can actually take this matter forward and buy into these organisations is the council. There is no other organisation locally that could get the money together that's going to buy into the wind farms, because it's once they're built. Now, once they're built, they're going to be very expensive bits of kit. So what my concern about this idea of joint venture from the outset was just exactly what did that mean? I understand why the Stornoway Trust and Mooyville would be coming into it, because the offer has been made to them, if you like. But in terms of actually taking this forward to fruition, the main thing we're going to have to do is to find the money. And I really think that the council must be the driving force behind this particular organisation, because we're the only organisation that's been mentioned here so far that could access that kind of money. And furthermore, we have a very good name, generally speaking, for the way in which we govern our money. I have to say that, Norman, because I'm sitting beside you. And that's important. Yeah. It is important to have a good name when you're borrowing money. So I just wondered, if, John, if you have any observations on that particular point.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As Councillor McCormack says, the initial agreement for Stornoway, which started this whole idea, was that the arrangement be between Lewis Wind Power and Stornoway Trust as landowner. Stornoway Trust actually requested that the council join them because of that challenge they had in raising funds and the fact that the council might have access to local government borrowing at a lower rate and other sources of funding. The challenge then is that for the Comhairle to get involved, I assume, and Norman will correct me if I'm wrong, but it might have to be a Comhairle asset to borrow at that level, because we are talking about £60 million per shared ownership to buy into these wind farms. So in order to realise that, the joint venture was set up. We're now looking at a special purpose vehicle, which is sort of semi-independent of trust and council. So we can say that the SPV owns the asset and there's a return for both council and Stornoway Trust. So a lot of legalities to work through on that. But as Councillor McCormack says, we were invited to participate by the trust, and we're providing that support for funding in the same way as we will with Muirval and Inishkin. But the council is certainly a key player.
And my question about the community representative?
Oh, sorry, yes, I'll take that back to the JV, Councillor McCormack, and propose that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader, for your forbearance.
Okay, Angus, not a problem. Thank you. Who's flashing? He's not flashing though. Someone else. There you go. I can see the sun. Yes, sorry. Mary?
Thank you, Leader. A question, probably formed of my own ignorance. Reading through this and other reports, is there a difference, or is it just three different ways of saying the same thing? Zonal pricing, locational pricing, and nodal pricing. I see all referred to, and wonder where we are with that. And the second point, more of an observation, where the energy bill is currently going through Parliament, and there was an amendment brought by a Liberal Democrat MP, I believe, on safeguarding the position of community wind projects. That was defeated, and while it was defeated, those speaking against it said it was because it was already within the spirit of the bill. It didn't need to be stated explicitly. I would much prefer to have seen it stated explicitly, and I hope we can keep that on the agenda. Thanks.
Yeah, John. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Murray's correct on the zonal, and it's three ways of saying the same thing. It is area-based electricity pricing. This came up at the meeting between Shetland and the Scotland office last week. Developers resisted because it means less margin for them in a very challenging area to develop. So there are a lot of vested interests that are opposed to zonal pricing, which would mean cheaper electric near renewables, more expensive further away. So it'll be a long-term project to get that through because of resistance within the established order of renewable generators. On community energy and the bill, a lot of the provisions that were sought through the community energy amendment are built in largely to the GB Energy approach. They talk very committed to community energy, to what they're going to do there with shared ownership. So a lot of the kind of principles that were being pursued through the bill are starting to appear through GB Energy, and that's something we're seeking engagement with the GB Energy team on that to maximise the provision for communities.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carl McLean, you had your light on next. Could all others put theirs off apart from John, if you leave yours on?
Thanks, Chair. I'm not on your committee, but going back to certainly what Councillor McCormack was talking about, I'm going back to 8.3, where it describes the joint venture in the group, and there's an inclusion of Muirval, or Hughenish, as we used to call them. Am I right in saying that at the conception of that project, that there was a 20% stake for the Comhairle in that project? First of all, I'm just saying that this joint venture, so it's between the Hughenish, Stornoway Trust, the LWP project, and because of the 20% input, it's a Comhairle we're promised that. Am I correct?
Yeah. The agreement with Stornoway, Chair, was that it would be between Lewis One per Stornoway Trust.
Yeah.
The agreement addition is just between Eurowind Energy and the Comhairle.
Yeah.
But there's no community interest as there is with Stornoway Trust, so that's why Muirval's been brought in.
That's right. That's a benefit of the Stornoway Trust element. It's for the community.
Yeah, but the Comhairle is the principal.
Absolutely. And I'm going on then to the last sentence you've got in A3 is that the whole of the Western Isles could benefit from this. Because you mentioned in that there that there could be a discounted retail and island consumers from the Butt to Barra. So that is one of the good things of this joint venture.
Yeah. Had it been Stornoway Trust alone, they would have been limited to providing benefit within the Stornoway Trust boundaries.
That's correct.
The fact that they invited the Comhairle in and it's been separated out to a special purpose vehicle allows us to go beyond Stornoway Trust boundaries. And the shared ownership that's available there could be a candidate for the retail we talked about earlier. And that would be retail but a Barra discount to the entire population.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that clarification. Thank you.
Come to Councillor Norrie MacDonald next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've only been involved in discussions about renewable energy for 7 years. Sir Angus and John have been a lot longer than I have. I was very slow on the uptake and what was involved, and I had conflicts from various sources coming to me and suggesting that this was the best way forward for the Comhairle's energy policy and that was the best way forward from the energy policy. And we debated long and hard over the way forward before we finally agreed that, you know, an interconnector was the best way forward, and that would necessitate the bigger companies providing the generation for that to be viable. And the issue has always been, was there going to be room on that interconnector for community power to get on there? It's still an issue, unfortunately. But I don't envy John. John, every time I would hear something and somebody would say to me, this is the way it is, can you do something about it, or can you talk to somebody about it? The corner's wrong, this is right. I was going to say to John, this is what I'm hearing, and John would say, no, that's not how it is, this is how it is, because separating, I was going to say shit from Trinola, fact from fiction, what you're getting told and what the actuality is, and what we wish was the actuality. I mean, I share Angus's aspirations as well, in many instances, but John has to play with a ball at his feet, not the ball that he wishes he had. We all wish that things were the way they are. Dealing with Ofgem, dealing with government, you know, trying to get things the way that we wish them to be is fine, but John has to deal with what's actually there on the ground and, you know, the facts of the matter. At the end of the day, the JV, whatever we can extract, we're sitting on potentially the biggest bounty this Western Isles have ever seen. At the end of the day, however we deliver something that alleviates fuel poverty and benefits the residents of the whole of the Western Isles, from the Butt to Barra, through Stornoway and through the Comhairle, taking revenue in however we take it in, through operating an energy company, through a joint share and other turbines, through extracting revenue from developers, etc. We need to leave a lasting legacy. We need to have some meaningful community benefit, and we need to try and reduce fuel poverty. At the end of this whole project, you know, these are the three ambitions we need to come away with. And I think everybody in the Comhairle has had a chance to contribute towards the consensus of how we work that way forward. We have Major Developments Forum as well, Oversight Group. We've got the Sustainable Development Group. We've got several groups looking at how to best extract as maximum benefit as we can from these companies. They know we're not going to go take piecemeal from them. They've accepted that, you know, they will have to pay a price for extracting energy from around these islands, and they're willing to play ball. You know, we always think that they're not that wanting to get away as cheaply as possible. I would like to think that that's not the case, and they're actually seriously involved in the negotiations, and they're willing to provide meaningful community benefit as well. It's just the negotiations on how we extract that and derive that from them. So it is a big game now, you know, and the legislations and the way things work out hopefully will provide that meaningful community benefit, legacy, and alleviate fuel poverty. And, you know, we've spoken with, in collaboration with Shetland, Orkney, etc., about postcode tariffs, etc. How ever we can manage to get these things through. But that's dealing with government again, and it's playing with the ball we wish we had rather than the ball that's actually at our feet. So let's hope at the end of this, we can derive that maximum benefit.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other lights on, so sorry, Duncan. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just following on from what's been said, I've been involved, with SSEN on cabling for same length of time as John did, with cable routes and that, and it was clear then, that something was going to come. And looking at the way the Comhairle has addressed the projects as they developed, I think if it wasn't for the Comhairle and the lobbying that was done by the Comhairle, the interconnector wouldn't be here. There is no question whatsoever. It's the lobbying that was done by the Comhairle that has taken us to where we are. And looking for, I remember at that particular time, I was on the board of Highlands and Islands Enterprise. I was hearing about Viking Energy and what was happening up in Shetland and how they were going to do things. But the Comhairle had made the decision on the joint venture and how they wanted the thing to progress, and they've stuck there when others were saying they were getting it wrong. And I think when I look at the joint venture and what is paramount for us is we're seeing the opportunity that will pass us by unless we grasp that opportunity. It's in our generation, it's the oil industry that to Shetland and Orkney over the best part of 40 years. We see what the benefits have been. We are sitting and being offered that opportunity. And as I said yesterday, you see the community landowners that have negotiated 4.5 million for the west side of Lewis for 35 years. That's a huge opportunity, and thanks to them for managing to deal that with Northland. And we have discussed and started earlier discussions with Pot 2, where the whole of the Western Isles will benefit, and we would hope that that would be a starting point at 4.5. And the joint venture is a unique opportunity for the Comhairle to get involved, and the prize at the end of the day will be community benefit that could see we're all scraping for pounds here and there, and this is the unique opportunity. And as we heard earlier this morning, for example, roads and all the other things that need to be developed, I think the Scottish Government and the UK Government have have to play their part because it's UK energy, and looking at GB energy that is hopefully going to have a look at community benefit, and by having an MP that's been very vocal on community benefit for it, I think as we're discussing with the Scottish Affairs Committee a week on Tuesday, that this is a unique opportunity we do have, and I'm confident that the Comhairle is moving in the right direction to get the maximum community benefit that can be achieved from such a project. Having had a look, being in Shetland just about a month ago, finding out that Viking Energy that was being spoken about so highly 20 years ago, the Shetland community have been shafted as far as I could make out from Viking Energy. So the Comhairle have stood there, they haven't shifted their position, and when I look back now, I think it was the right decision in going forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McInnes. There are recommendations for approval at 3.1. Read. Thank you very much. Thanks for the discussion around that. That was good. Just a reminder, I think Angus is looking slightly nervous as to the 3 o'clock start time for the Ombudsman scrutiny. So I'm not looking to stifle debate, but yeah, it's most likely going to be at the rising of policy and resources. So the next item on the agenda is corporate policy and outcome delivery report. And item 8B has been withdrawn and will be submitted to a future meeting of the committee. So Mr. Bird will speak to item 8A and then Emma will speak to item 8C. So we'll come to Malcolm first.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be mindful of time. This is a comprehensive report. I'm not going to read it to you. You'll be relieved to know. I'll just highlight some key passages. One of these is 2.5. Like everyone else, we can't produce a mid-year revenue monitoring outturn report at the moment, but we're not anticipating any overspends. I'll move into the body of the report. 7.3 covers the recovery from the cyber attack and gives you an update there. I won't read to you that report. Just to say, PSN compliance, of course, doesn't mean that you're immune from a cyber attack. We were PSN compliant before, but it's really good to see that moving back. That's the external validation of the health of our systems. Just a brief mention of 7.5. 5 of the 31 actions, only 5 of the 31 actions from the digitalisation strategy have yet to commence, so that's really good progress there. Moving on to 7.13, not so positive. Shared Prosperity Fund, UK Shared Prosperity Fund. This was supposed to be the successor of European structural funds, and it's not been that by any means, but it's to be reduced by 40%. That's the bottom line there. Now, we provide a number of essential services through that: employability, people and skills, financial inclusion, very critically, and Multiply, which is the literacy and numeracy work. Now, I gather that has been excluded. We will obviously do the best we can there with the money that we have, but it is disappointing to note that reduction, and that will have its implications because we wisely took the decision, in my opinion, to apply Shared Prosperity Fund to continue the good things that we used to do under EU structural funding. Just a word on 7.16. I would read it yourselves, but again, our apprenticeship work, I think, is very, very good, and that's set out. The evidence for that statement is set out there. I'm conscious of time, so I'll move quickly forward. 7.24, we submitted a very detailed response about the importance of island representation on the boards of public bodies. That's very much still in the news, so just for information there. Sections 7.28 to 7.30, not going to read that to you again, but it points out the important work which we are thankfully able to do on anti-poverty measures. A lot of detail there. We hope we will get the same funding for next year. We have deliberately held back 24-25. That's this year. That will be allocated very, very shortly. We'll set up measures for doing that. But that was to give us continuity of funding from last year at the same level. So hopefully those organisations which were assisting, we will continue to be able to assist. But obviously we would need the funding for 25-26 as well. Finally, I think to highlight, I submitted a report to the September series in Harris on public service reform, and that was very well received by the committee. So there's just an update there at 7.43 onwards. Important meetings coming next month, which the leader and I will attend. So I'll leave that just now and report back to you at the February series on that. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Are there any questions? Don't see any lights or hands up, so we can move on to Emma next. So Emma, if you give us an update on item 8C.
Thank you, Leader. There was significant discussion on this report at the Social Work and Social Care Board. We discussed the regulator engagement over the period, the progress being made on service developments and the main issues the department is addressing at the moment. The report details them all, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions on this report? I don't see any lights on, so in that case, that wasn't me singing. There are recommendations for approval, I believe. Approved. Thank you very much. So we got both of them. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 9 is Organisational Development Strategy. And this report presents the draft Organisational Development Strategy for 2024 to 2030 as detailed at Appendix 2 to the report for approval. The Cornia's first Organisational Development Strategy was approved on the 12th of December 2018 and the respective progress report is at Appendix 1 to the report. Fiona Nape is here to speak to the report and will answer members' questions. Fiona.
Thank you. So this is a new organisational development strategy, and it's different to the previous strategy in that it is for a 6-year period to enable medium and long-term actions to be developed as the strategy progresses. It's also structured across 3 integrated frameworks to work well, work smart, and work sustainably to keep the transformation more focused on specific areas of work in the development of a dynamic working environment. Although the strategy is a live strategy and there is a draft action plan included in the document for each framework, these are the actions initially developed during the internal consultation as the first suite of actions to start the transformation process. For ease of reference, the action plans are also at Appendix 3 to the report with proposed completion dates and the lead service and the responsible officer recommended to take each action forward to completion. However, once the strategy is approved to ensure working practices meet the needs of citizens, a series of action planning sessions will be undertaken with chief officers and their services, and this will be supported by the best value action planning team to establish the tasks to be undertaken to deliver each action and identify ownership of these, timescales for implementing each action, and the resources, costs, and risks associated with their achievement. Milestones and measures of success that will be demonstrated over the next 6 years, and regular evaluation to assess how the change programme is progressing will be undertaken. New actions will be added to the strategy as it progresses, and the action plan will be monitored through the Comhairle's performance management system Interplan, with which elected members have access to. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Are there any questions or comments on this draft? Councillor Mackenzie. Sorry, I don't know if there's another light on. No.
No, that's it. I'm not on your committee. I don't know if there's another committee member trying to come in. It's a good report, a very good report, lots of it. And it's just a couple of questions I've got. Sickness absence is a key area, and it appears that we've got a higher rate of sickness for some reason. Is there any explanation for that? And continually we're talking about the working age population going to decrease over the years. And I wonder, you know, in view of the forthcoming hopeful energy and all the rest of it, maybe, I'm not saying we can predict exactly what's going to happen, but maybe it won't be as bad as it appears at the present time. That's just a personal thought. My second question was really about hybrid working and what, you know, what is the policy going forward? Obviously it's got advantages, but it's also got its disadvantages. Just wonder what the, you know, the situation will be.
Donald, can you put your mic off just for a second? I'll bring the chief executive in on this one. I'll come back to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to address the point on sickness absence. I think our rate is always going to be higher than a number of comparators, and that is because we employ everyone almost who discharges our services. Most councils discharge their health and social care, home helps, social care staff. A lot of that will be outsourced to the private sector, and it is in the also children's services, also in many cases refuse collection. Now it's in these more manual jobs that there is inevitably more wear and tear, if I can put it that way, among the workforce. We also have an aging workforce like most of local government. So our figures include all our staff. Other councils' figures will by no means include all staff discharging their services. So the rural and islands councils tend to be at the higher end, but that's not just, we're not complacent about that. I mean, we monitor it very closely. Suffice to say, the highest rate of absence is indeed in health and social care, and that perhaps reflects both the demographics and the nature of the work.
Is your microphone on? Wait, I can't see.
The second one was about the hybrid working.
Yes, I'll defer to colleagues on the hybrid working policy. We have reviewed that at corporate management team. I'm having a memory lapse as to whether that's worked its way through the policy system, but my memory is that it has. Yes, Ms. Skinner is nodding. We approved a policy either at the last series or the series before, so I'll refer to that. But again, that's not something that's set in stone. We want to review how well that's working, and it's a policy that will be reviewed very frequently.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Clyde.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Fiona. In terms of the strategy, there is no reference to the actual working physical environment going forward for our working people. Give reference to a hybrid increase in hybrid working, and in the context of our financial situation in terms of our assets, our physical assets, in terms of this building, for example. And is there a link between this strategy and moving forward in terms of planning ahead on what kind of working physical environment we need to provide for our staff in the next decade or so?
Thank you. Fiona?
Thank you. So on page 10, there's reference to the Assets and Infrastructure Service that, in partnership with the corporate management team, will be looking in more detail at a review of the property estate. And that comes under, I'm just going to have a look at, I think it's 2.4, develop a future office environment plan in partnership with chief officers to finalise and inform hybrid working arrangements. So that's what I'm saying. This is a draft strategy, and I will be drilling down and supporting chief officers in each of these actions to bring that to fruition.
Fiona, thank you, Chair. I welcome that. Sorry, I missed that out, but I'm glad that it's right at the heart of the strategy. There has to be a reference to the office environment going forward too. And like I said, when we're talking about our own building assets, we have to take that into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clyde. Yes, it's a very good point. We've got to be looking ahead, how are things going to look in the future, and it's great to see this report, and the fact that it's in draft, there'll be consultation, and people will be able to feed in these comments. So it's good to see. Councillor C, I can't actually see your microphone there, but I see you're being waved at as well. Over to you, Mustafa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Ray to sit down a bit. No, just I think what in view what the chief executive mentioned, but the level of sickness, absence, and I can see the refreshing well-being training material. It's to be completed by 2026. So obviously, if we're acknowledging that our sickness level is high, and and we're trying to improve the training material for managers to deal with the sickness level while we wait until 2026. So just to see, can we bring that forward or something? So.
Thank you. Again, the dates in the strategy, they're just draft dates until I meet with the chief officers or the lead officer for the individual actions. These dates are obviously will be set according to the resources and that we're going to put in place or have to deliver the individual actions. There may be some actions that I've put in the draft that may not even be doable for 2, 3, 4 years. The ones that maybe are towards the end of the 6 years may come forward. It depends on when I actually you know, have the meeting with the chief officers and we identify the resources to deliver on the strategy.
Fiona?
Yeah, just obviously if we're acknowledging that it's an existing problem, and we're also acknowledging that maybe we need to refresh our training material to help our managers to deal with and support, you know, the employers. So are we just maybe looking at that closer, maybe just to see how we can do, if that's going to help with the
Yeah, I
sickness?
think that'll come out in the consultation with the chief officer. So
Yeah, and we'll definitely take that on board. And
you.
I think work will come out of the staff survey, which will be completing in December as well. So all that work will actually be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No hands online. I don't think so. So there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Agreed? Thank you. Thank you very much, Fiona. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the National Care Service update. This report is for noting and provides an update to the Comhairle on the status of the National Care Service Bill and associated developments. On the 14th November 2024, the Minister for Social Care, Wellbeing and Sport announced a pause of the Stage 2 process of the National Care Service Bill to allow reflection of the views shared, and the communication reflecting this decision is detailed at Appendix 1 to the report. Prior to this announcement, key stakeholders had withdrawn engagement on the NCS bill, and COSLA withdrew shared accountability for the bill based on its assessment of a lack of progress in addressing the concerns and risks identified by local government. A summary of the COSLA position is provided at Appendix 2 to the report. Malcolm Burr and will speak to the report, and Emma will be available to answer questions too, but firstly I'll pass over to Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. I spoke about this report in some detail at Social Work and Social Care Board, so I will be brief, but I would also want to acknowledge that we are in the presence of Eddie Follen, the Chief Officer for Health and Social Care in COSLA, who's with us this week, so there's an added pressure there to get this briefing for you absolutely correct. But I think you've summarised the position in the briefing, and the report has all the relevant documents. The Comhairle's position on National Care Service has always been from day one that there are many merits in the idea, and indeed there was much that was good in the bill, but it failed to recognise from the start the twin issues of finance and of workforce, and focused instead on structural change, and in our case, adding what would have been a third public body to an already overcrowded public sector landscape in the Western Isles. We've maintained that position throughout, and much of these, or many of these points, have been picked up by other stakeholders, whether they have withdrawn their support or not. Looking ahead positively, though, we all know health and social care, primary health and social care, is a very vulnerable service. It's an essential service. It's a vulnerable service. It has significant workforce issues, some of which we alluded to in the last item. And there is and most IGBs, ours does not this year, but it will next year. Most IGBs have significant deficits, and which means that demands will then be made by IGBs on councils which cannot meet these demands. So there is a real opportunity here to pick up the good things in the bill, lots of these about support of the social work profession, about respite, about carers, but to look at the whole picture of finance and workforce at that time. So the Comhairle, I think, will in conjunction with COSLA, respond to these opportunities positively, because we all know that, to put it at its most basic, there are things that need to be done with our delivery of health and social care. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Emma, would you like to say anything at this stage? Okay, in that case, I'll open up to questions, and Councillor McCormack first.
Thank you very much, Leader. I am not a member of your committee. I wanted to ask, because I'm not quite clear, if COSLA's position is that nobody should make a profit out of social care.
I don't want to speak entirely for COSLA, but I think COSLA has recognised, as we have in practice, that there is a mixed market, as it's called, for social care provision, and that inevitably includes the private sector. In urban Scotland, I imagine that still the commercial sector is the primary provider of residential social care and a great deal of home social care. Orkney and Shetland have an exclusively public environment. Isles is still a mix of third sector and until recently commercial. So our own position in the Western Isles reflects that mixed provision. It would be a major task, I think, to shift that entirely to public sector provision, but certainly the tone of the discussion at COSLA is along the, if we have a National Health Service addressing health needs in the broadest sense, we should also have if we have a National Care Service, that should address care needs in that way. Who provides that, I think is not, there's no dogmatic position on that just now. It's more about the values of the service.
I've heard quite a lot about this discussion on the radio over quite a significant period of time when the government was kind of collapsing yet again. And certainly the trade union movement is beginning to push very hard for a position that social care should be like the NHS and we should be free at the point of care. I know that's a big step to take, but it appalled me at the time of COVID when people just piled into the private places and they took them in without any check on them because they would make more money out of them. That was the reason, and that was wrong. And that meant that, the government was not in charge of the situation and the community was not in charge of the situation. And we should, because we're far better at looking after people ourselves than people in the private sector.
Thank you. Chief Executive, do you want to come back on that one?
I suppose those I would comment on everything there, but I mean, there is an absolute need to look at the financing of this of the social care service, which people want and which I think all political parties say they want. But it is, I think, the problem with the bill, no matter its good intentions, was that it did not take into account the context of public finance at the moment, or indeed of workforce. And if we're starting again, that we should start with these issues on the table, as well as standards and values and support for profession.
Thank you. I think that sums up the position of the Corner quite well. I don't see any other lights on. Sorry, Councillor Mackenzie, apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. The Chief Executive has spelt out a pretty gloomy position, I think, with regard to the IJB and the finances of the IJB and going forward and going back. And I just wonder, originally we were asked to take a decision on to support either the health board or ourselves running the social care, or take the middle line, which was the IGB, which we thought was, in fact, great and probably the most practical way of doing it, and combining the two, the health board and the council. So we took the middle line there. I just wonder, do I get the impression that there may be a time, it might be a time to relook at this, or is it just set in stone now, basically?
Thank you. I'll bring Chief Executive in.
It's an interesting question, Chair. I mean, we and 30 others, 31 of the 32 local authorities went for the IGB model, the exception being Highland, which has a lead agency model, but for different sectors. The council leads for young people, the health board leads for everyone else. I think my personal view, and I'm not, my personal view is that the system has to change. I don't think it is set in stone. Actually, I think everyone in the system realizes it has to move. Our work is around a single authority model for delivery of these services instead of multiplying organisations and groups and chief officers and all the rest of it. But that's not the only option, of course. But again, it comes back to the financing. IJBs were perhaps solvent when they were set up, but they have become less so, and that's entirely predictable because of improvements to workforce conditions and also because of the demographics of Scotland. It's not just an issue here. And of course, the increasing costs of healthcare, which is again arguably a workforce issue. The pandemic, to put it mildly, did not help in that regard. But the system needs an urgent review, and to link back to what I was saying earlier, now is the time to do that. But to answer your question, I don't see it as set in stone, and I don't think it should be.
Okay, thank you. There are no further lights on. In that case, do members agree to note the report? Agreed. Thank you. Item 11. This report is for noting and provides an outline of engagement between communities and the leadership of Comhairle and Eilean Share, and provides details of ward visits which were undertaken to encourage dialogue around the budget priorities and to hear directly from communities. The findings of the visit are detailed in the appendix to the report, and Fiona McInnes-Begg is here to speak to the report. Fiona.
Afternoon, folks. The purpose of the report, as the leader has just indicated, was to provide an outline of engagement activities that happen between communities and the leadership of the Comhairle, primarily around budgets. Initially was the thought, and then we looked also at the refresh of the corporate strategy, the single island authority model, and our Work Your Comhairle initiative. So it was with that in mind that we engaged with communities, and I think the outcome of the discussions, I think it was really helpful for the leader to go out to all the ward areas. I think people valued the time that they had in front of the leader to share some of the concerns and some of the aspirations that they had for their communities and the work that they were doing. At 6.2, I've noted some of the key findings. People felt in general that the corporate strategy was or had all the components necessary to deliver for change in the Western Isles, and that was definitely supported by the responses we had. Budget discussions, obviously interesting budget discussions. No surprise though that key areas around housing and employment, childcare, education. I mean, it came up time and time again, and you know, you were in a situation, a nodding dog situation, where you were thinking, okay, yeah, we've heard this in almost every ward area that we've been in. So, you know, perhaps keep that in mind when the budget discussions are ongoing at the moment. The single island authority discussion was wholeheartedly endorsed in every ward area that we visited. You know, people were saying, yes, we still need more information about what it's going to look like, but in principle, we agree with the idea that that's what we need in order to move forward positively. So, obviously, the appendix shows all the notes that were taken at the meetings, and I can only apologise for the Broad Bay ward notes that went a little awry. I don't know who was in charge of them. I mean, it must have been me. And anyway, I think we captured most of the discussion. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Fiona. I'll bring in Councillor Norrie MacDonald first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Fiona, for the report. I think it was easy to sell the single island authority to them since we were the ones who were selling it, primarily. I'm afraid, although we've, particularly in my own ward, it was a great success having yourself down to meet with our local forum and just an open and honest discussion about the position we found ourselves in. And unfortunately, we're going to have to go and sell the same bag of rotten fish again this coming year. But it's important that we do so, and it's important we consult with the communities, and it's important, again, we get scrutinised in doing so, and the feedback needs to be delivered as well. But I think consultation going forward, because we're going to have to do the same thing all over again in 2025, and it's delivering yet more not unpalatable news, but possibly we'll need to make it as palatable as we can. But it's not going to be a double Christmas for anybody.
Okay, thanks very much, Nori. I'll bring in Mustafa. Councillor Racine.
Thanks very much. And yeah, I mean, just to what Councillor MacDonald was saying, the consultation was very, very well attended and very beneficial in our ward as well. I think one of the things that keeps coming back, and I think was highlighted in most of the thing, is early childcare and early years education. Every forum you go, that keeps coming back, and we're here as a call. Obviously, we're under budgetary pressures too, but we all acknowledge how important childcare and early years education is to the future of this community. If we going to go back next year and do more consultation and the same subjects come back and we just give them the same answers, I think our challenge is, what do we do when consultations like this in the community highlight especially a common thread around all the island? What do we do with it? You know, I know we have non-statutory element between 0 to 2 and we can't do anything, you know, obviously under the budgetary pressure. I don't have the answer. I'm just highlighting that that's something that keeps coming back all the time, and it's something that's really important to the future of this economy, to this community. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it was raised consistently across the ward. So, and I suppose the task for us is, now that we've done it, I don't see it as a consultation. I see it as engagement. I think it's going out and speaking to people and listening to people. And I suppose the most important part of that is, what do we do afterwards? So that's the bit we need to start working on. You know, once this report's approved, we can start moving forward on that. Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and just see, as I participated, but not as a councillor, I was still as a member of the community then, and certainly it was beneficial from our point of view, and certainly was well received within that. And I think having yourself coming to meet the community was a huge positive, because we were able to share a lot of the concerns to elected members, and I think we've got to continue doing it, hard as the messages may be this year. And I think, as Mustafa said, I think the childcare and nursery provision is a major thing that we need to get through and get sorted, because for me it's one of the biggest issues that comes across my desk every day. So I think we need to be ready for what's going to come again.
Yeah, thanks very much. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Yes, I think as everybody would agree, it was a very useful exercise. I certainly thought the meeting we were involved in Stornoway South was very good, although I see I'm not recorded as being present, but I'm pretty sure I remember it was good, so I must have been there. I passed on to the leaders yesterday and had a wee word with them about it. A further extension of this, which is the participatory budgeting that North Ayrshire have done, and it looks like a really good, interesting model to have a look at, where members of the public, including young people with the Young Scot card, vote online in community projects. So I just wondered if that was a way of developing further and taking it to a digital level. I'm not suggesting replacing face-to-face meetings, but as well as. Thanks.
I think you're right. I think it's using all the tools in the box. You know, I think the face-to-face was excellent. I think that personally, I found it really beneficial. and actually hearing firsthand. And I think the public know we're in not in an easy situation. It's quite difficult for the council at the moment, but actually being able to raise their concerns, and like I say, the next bit we need to focus on is what do we do with the feedback we get. So I think that'll as part of the next set of visits, that's going to be really, really important, taking that forward. Councillor Callum McLean.
Thanks, Chair. I just referred to page 34, paragraph 3. No, I was going to take her up on paragraph 3. I think she knows what I'm talking about. But it was good to be there, I can say. She didn't mention her auntie's. I was going to say that, but the leader's aunt's comments in her absence. But it's a good job she didn't. But it was a worthwhile experience, I must say, and it was worthwhile for the leader to come down. And thanks, Fiona, for being so articulate. But we'll forgive you for your missing. But it was worth having. It was worth being there, and I think it's something to be repeated.
Yeah, that was a good meeting, even with my auntie in attendance. So I know her thoughts. She tells me, don't worry. Councillor Clyden.
I think Mr. McLean's going to get in trouble with your auntie.
I think he is.
But it was a good meeting, and it was well attended. Just to pick up on Councillor Murray's point about digital participation. Many years ago now, we actually had that kind of mechanism where we balanced the budget ourselves individually. We went in and decided how we would balance the budget, and budgetary participation is a key kind of engagement tool now for the public, and perhaps we should maybe consider some sort of digital element where people can actually physically go in and say, well, to go in and balance the budget themselves, to give them that experience.
Yeah,
because it was quite a challenge really when we had to do it ourselves. So it's worth maybe to kind of develop an app or some sort of digital mechanism to do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's something I've looked at across the board, and it's definitely something we're wanting to do. So that will be part of it. But of course we have to kind of put the options on the table that we're looking at as well, separate from balancing the budget exercise. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth taking forward. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Crichton there. It was an exercise which took quite a long time, but it showed you the consequences as you were going along. This, if you do this, you lose a job. Or you gain a job or whatever. So the consequences were definitely spelled out, and it took time, and I think it was useful for all the councillors that took part in it, to go through the thing, and it added up, and the budget at the end of the thing, and I think that's worth going back and looking at. I can't remember what it was called, but it was good. The other thing is, it's interesting that we have the emphasis on the single island authority. And there's the water board, Scottish Water. There's HIE, which are housing. There's the health and social work, and apart from enterprise, well, we had enterprise as well. All these things were part of the council at the outset. So we're actually putting a case forward here for going back to the beginning again. With all these departments were here, were part of the council. So there's nothing new under the sun. I'll just maybe mention that there's one or two people who aren't on the list which have been missed off, and I'll give it to you at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, there's a couple of. Yeah, there were a couple of small technical errors with that one. So yeah, if there are any names missing from the attendees, then please feel free to get in touch. I don't see any other lights. So just again, personally, I find it really useful. It's definitely something that we need to keep doing. And my thanks to the members who've supported, because one element of course, was actually me going to visit the wards, because there were things that I've not I'm not aware of. I hear places mentioned in reports, and I wasn't actually aware of where they were and how they impacted the community. So I found that really beneficial. So we'll definitely try and include that in the next series of visits as well. But thanks to Fiona and the team for supporting that too. So there are there recommendations to note, I think it is. Yeah. So do we agree to note the report? Yeah, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is finance. So item 12, this report provides an update on the anticipated financial position in respect of the 25-26 budget and seeks approval of the next phases of budget consultation and preparation. Malcolm Burr will speak to the report and Norman will come in for questions. Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. Seems strange to be saying I'll be brief on a report on budget strategy, but I'm conscious we had a discussion at the informal last night. You've had a budget seminar, you've had a meeting of the Budget and Strategy Board. So with your permission, I'll turn to the recommendations. Note that we note the projected financial position and measures to be taken in order to set a balanced budget. Now, the projected financial position, not to labour the point, is set out really in the conclusion of the report. And that says whatever happens on the 4th of December and whatever detailed settlement we have 10 days thereafter, it is highly likely that we are going to need to identify potential savings to address the underlying deficit and agree a balanced budget. So without getting into reserves and council tax and Crown Estate, we are going to have to do something to find additional funding from the current budget. The measures to be taken in order to do that, and I won't labour the points I made at the informal last night. I mean, these need to be your choices, not officers, and it needs to be your direction, not ours. But of course, we will do what we have to do to suggest to you a balanced budget. But 9.1 onwards sets out what has to be done. Services have already been asked to reevaluate budgets, to do some benchmarking, to do service review exercises. Some of these were completed in full. Some of these still need some work. And Norman MacDonald and I have set out in various fora some of the presumptions that we will be working on to put together a balanced budget that reflects your political direction, and that includes using Crown Estate funding in new ways, judicious use of reserves, etc. But be in no doubt, Mr. MacDonald and I have to proceed with that work, regardless of what is said next week, and we want you to know that work is taking place. So those are the measures that will be taken in order to set a balanced budget. It's just we don't know what the component parts of that balanced budget will be at this stage. Recommendation B, following, of course, the Scottish budget and the local government settlement, we will report to you. Of course we will. I hope that can be done before Christmas. I hope that can be done in week beginning the 16th of December. But if it can't, it'll be in very early January, and that will determine the content of options for public engagement and consultation on the budget strategy. And that will take account of the views you expressed, of course, at the seminar and at previous budget and strategy boards. Procedurally, there's an unusual recommendation, but I hope you'll be able to support it. We're suggesting that you delegate authority to the Budget and Strategy Board to undertake the actions set out in paragraph B, and those are, as I've said, to determine the content of options for public engagement and consultation. Otherwise, we will need a Budget and Strategy Board and a Policy and Resources Committee and a full council before we can determine the content of the public consultation, and I think that's somewhat over the top in the circumstances, given the amount of information in the public domain. We have to remember, we're here to inform the public as well through the reports. All of that's in the public domain, particularly in this report. So I think it would be, it's both justifiable but also sensible to delegate authority to the board to prepare that case and the content of the public consultation. Norman MacDonald is here and may wish to contribute, but either of us are happy to take questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll just go straight to questions from members. Are there any questions? Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's just more of a comment than a question. It's I'm not against what the recommendations are there, but can I just reiterate that there's one ward member at the Budget and Statutory Board, and they're meant to be briefing the other members after each meeting. It's hardly lacking in your own ward, so can I get you please to reiterate that to the Budget Board Statutory members?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I did reiterate that at the last meeting, but yeah, we'll follow up on that. Are there any other questions or comments online? No. In that case, just a reminder to members, but although we've had the Budget Statutory Board and the seminar, if agreed, Malcolm and Norman will be working on recommendations, but that still can be fed into by members with their views. After we had the informal discussion last night, looking for suggestions, so that avenue is still open. So if you want to come through myself, we can follow up on that. The recommendations for approval at 3.1 of the report. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 13. This report is for noting and provides an update on the progress of the 2023-28 capital programme as at 30 September 2024. Projects totalling 28.2 million were carried forward from 2018 to 23 capital programme, and the delivery of these projects is ongoing, and the detail is provided at Appendix 1 to the report. At the time of writing, 4 million of expenditure had been incurred in the 24-25 year, and the full breakdown is also provided in the appendix to the report. I would propose the following additional recommendation as the asset investment team met on Monday and recommended that £250,000 of the £1 million additional capital funding available in the current year should be used to undertake necessary works at Seaforth House to allow the housing with extra care facility to be used for Blarbuia residents. This work is necessary to allow the transition of Blarbuia residents to Bremner Court. Norman MacDonald is here to speak to the report. Over to yourself, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really have anything to add to the report. The detail of all the projects is in the appendix, and the details of the additional funding is at 2.1 of the report. Probably just to mention that there's still additional funding. The balance of the 1 million is still available to be allocated, and this will be considered by the asset investment team to prioritise spend on that. Happy to take any questions, although I won't know much of the detail on the actual individual projects.
Okay, thanks very much, Norman. Are there any questions for Norman? Any comments? No. In that case, do members agree to note the report and approve the additional recommendation that I just mentioned? Agreed. Thank you. Item 14, and it's a half-year Treasury report 24-25, and this report provides a summary of the situation in relation to Treasury management activity for the first 6 months of 24-25. And again, Norman is available to answer members' questions. Is there anything you want to say, Norman, or will I just ask for a question? Are there any questions on the report? No. In that case, do members agree to note? Agreed. Thank you. And likewise, item 15 is the annual Treasury report, and it provides an update for the Treasury management activity for 23-24. And Norman can answer members' questions if they have any. No lights, no hands. So do members agree to note the report? Agreed. Thank you. Item 16, this report should be taken in private at the end of the meeting. Likewise, item 17 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. So we move on to item 18. This report seeks approval of the risk management policy and strategy, which has been revised and is detailed in the appendix to the report. The main revisions to the strategy are that the risk management priorities at section 5 of the report have been updated and are detailed at paragraph 2.3 of the report. And 6 references to the risk management intranet pages have been removed until this can be built back following the cyber attack. The revised risk management policy and strategy were approved by the corporate management team on the 4th of November 2024, and Rebecca MacLeod is available and will answer members' questions. Are there any questions on this report? No. In that case, there are recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Rebecca, for that. Item 19. This report provides a progress update on the corporate workforce plan approved by the Coroner in September 23. The action plan for 2025 to 26 at Appendix 2 to the report sets out areas where progress has been identified as being strategically important. Priority areas to meet future demand are outlined in paragraph 2.2 of the report. The action plan progress update at Appendix 1 to the report details progress in the first year of the corporate workforce plan and will continue to be monitored with further reporting scheduled annually. And again, Norma is available to answer any questions. Are there any questions on this report? No. In that case, there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1. Approved. Thank you, Norma. Item 20 is the Outer Hebrides Local Child Poverty Action Plan report for 23-24 and the priority actions for 24-25. Approval will be sought through NHS Western Isles and the Outer Hebrides Community Planning Partnership ahead of its final publication. And Linda Cunningham will answer members' questions.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one update to provide since the report was written regarding delivery of one of the priority actions, which has now taken place through the OHCPP anti-poverty group's winter campaign against poverty. A press release has been issued this week and a dedicated web page signposting the interventions available has been set up with a downloadable leaflet also on the website, on the Coroner's website. Thanks. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Linda. Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm not a member of your committee, but I am a member of the Local Child Poverty Action Group. Principally, I want to thank Linda and Eilean for the production of this report, which is very, very detailed. The unfortunate thing about it is that it hasn't changed an awful lot since last year. The good thing about it, I would say, is that the number of people who are involved in supporting people who are in poverty across the Outer Hebrides is quite amazing. The people who are in poverty should be getting help from somewhere. But that doesn't always take place, and it is particularly difficult for elderly people to get involved in one way. And although we have put out publicity this week to try and encourage people to, contact somebody, if you contact anybody on the list that we have published this week, that person will help you with everything. That doesn't mean they'll do it all for you, but they'll point you in the right direction so that you can get assistance from a number of places. In particular, people who are looking for a pension credit, for example, that application has to be in by the 21st of December. And although it looks like a very complicated form to fill, I'm assured, although I haven't done it myself, I'm assured it really is quite easy to fill. And the point about it, I would say, is that if you do fill that form in, and if you are then successful in obtaining pension credits, you will have access to other support mechanisms. I would also like to commend the DWP and the Scottish Government's benefits section. They are very active in this group. They come to the group, they're very active, very encouraging. And for example, if you think that you might be entitled to benefits and you go to the DWP, they will sit you down and go through everything and make sure that you get all of the benefits to which you are entitled. If you don't, they will contact you. if you don't come in or are unable to come in, somebody will go to your house to help you complete the forms. So if I would hope that people will be active so that we can help as many people as possible over this very difficult and cold period. But I just want to emphasize again that the members of staff in this organization, in West Niles Health and in the third sector, work extraordinarily hard in trying to support people who are in poverty. The biggest problem we have, of course, is fuel poverty, and it looks like that's going to take a bit of time to resolve. The other huge problem we have is the low wages that we have in the Western Isles, which is most regrettable. But we're trying to assist people into work. I've spoken with Councillor Houston Robertson today about how one way that we might help with transport issues. That could open doors. We're always looking for ways to help in any way whatsoever, and I really think that the group of people who take to do with poverty issues in the West Isles are first class, and we should be very proud of them all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCormick. Councillor Hussein.
Sorry, that was quick. No, I might have missed it there. I was looking for the list of the agencies involved in the partnership. Just to, I couldn't find anything.
They're not on here, but they've been issued in a press release.
All right, okay.
So if you look on, say, We Love Stornoway or something like that, you'll find the press release on the list is
okay.
And you well, the address for the list is there, and if you click on that, you'll get it on the website, the complete list. In addition, along with the press release, there is a shorter list
All right, okay.
of the principal areas of access.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McLean.
Again, I'm not on your committee, but can I just ask a question? What is the how do you differentiate between relative poverty and absolute poverty? I'm seeing it's really regrettable to see the numbers. I'll be quite honest with you. It's sort of disheartening in one sense to see that the numbers haven't gone down as much as we would like to have, but we're seeing them going up. But I'm just interested in relative poverty. I see it's Western Isles poverty profile. And I see that Cornwall and Sheila's 471 absolute poverty and 582 in relative poverty. So,
Linda, can you come in?
Is there a definition?
Yes, Chair, thanks. I thought I'd be asked this question, so I wrote it down.
I was going to say great minds think alike, but I can't say my mind is great.
It's okay. Right. Absolute poverty is whether people, wait a minute now. Whether people in lower income households are seeing their incomes rise in real terms based on a household income compared to the median income in a base year, which is usually 2010. So and then relative poverty is whether people are seeing their incomes lowering in a household if they're keeping pace with the growth of incomes in the economy as a whole. It's based on a household income compared to median income in the current year. So relative poverty is just comparing in the current year. Absolute poverty is comparing back to a base year of usually 2010, 2011.
Yeah, thanks for that. I get a feeling of what I know what you mean, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any others? Oh, sorry, Councillor Murray.
Thanks very much, Leader. I'm just, you might expect me to do so, but I'm just going to beat the drum for the Scottish child payment here, made by the Scottish Government of £26.70 per week for every child under 16. We're speaking there about relative and absolute poverty. It's estimated that that has kept 60,000 children out of relative poverty across Scotland since its introduction, and unlike other benefits, it's not capped at 2 children. Just felt I should say that.
Yeah, beneficial use of funding there, definitely. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Mackenzie?
Well, that's a very good report. That shows with unfortunate figures. The report itself is good, and it goes into great detail and took a lot of work, obviously. There's 2 or 3 things I wanted to say on that. On page 10, pointers is mentioned on a number of places, and I think I just want to highlight the work that Pointers has done, and congratulate them. Also, the other organisations like the Shed and they're really terrific the work they do. Somewhere at like page 19, it mentions ESOL, as opposed to ESCOL. It's unfortunate that this seems to me this continued. I know at one time there was money coming. Was it through the castle or through yourselves? But it's unfortunate for people who don't qualify but come into the community and can't speak English, that they're not able to get lessons, and maybe somebody can comment on that. On 6.4, it mentions the wards which the highest relative poverty. Are these in order? Are these in order? Stornoway North onwards, Nest. Is that the order of highest relative poverty? Just a matter of interest on that one. And as far as the winter fuel payment is concerned, have the Poverty Action Group contacted the MP on this to make representations? And because this is a thing that affects poverty in the Western Isles, probably more than anywhere else.
I'll bring Linda in on the first few questions, and Councillor McCormack, if you don't mind coming in on that last point, because I'm sure you got information on that one. Linda?
Thank you, Chair. The ESOL service is, I think it's gone online now. On page 19, a present parents wishing to access general ESOL provision to help them support their children's English learning in school are required to access general ESOL provision, which is available online through the UHI now, UHI North Western Hebrides. The order of wards, was that in the report?
6.4 in the report, I think.
Yeah. I put the highest relative poverty rate and the lowest, 18.4 and 14.2.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Yeah, on page 8 of the report, there's also a table, the appendix.
On page 8. Yeah, the percentages are all detailed in the they're not from higher to lower, but
North to south, I think they are. but to Barra.
Just 11 wards there.
Okay.
And the final question was, I think that has been letters written, Councillor McCormack or yourself, leader.
Yes, we have. I'll pass over to Councillor McCormack on that one.
Could I just say, in terms of the areas where poverty was at a maximum, the 2 that were established by the Community Planning Partnership were South Uist and Stornoway North. These were the areas where poverty was at the greatest, and that is therefore where quite a bit of resource was put into these two areas to try and alleviate that situation. In terms of contacting governments, both the Scottish and the UK governments have been contacted by letters. The leader and I both signed these letters, and they were put out along with a press release, I believe.
Yeah.
So they're in the public domain.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Racina, you wanting to come in?
Just a quick clarification, like I think 7.7 at the bottom, it says a range of vouchers and grants are available for family and poverty. Just for how do they access that? Is there any criteria? Do we know we're having enough support? Are we covering everything? Just do we know, is there any criteria who deliver and how did they deliver? Was it just an ad hoc system? Or
Yeah. Linda, do you have that at hand, or is that something you could pull together and share with members?
The press release signposted a dedicated web page on our website showing all our partner organisations that are providing support, and we allocated the Islands Coast Crisis emergency funding for last year to several partner organisations, and I think they're all detailed on that web page and the type of support they're offering. There's fuel vouchers and food vouchers. Well, beer plus that is just as with the free school meal service. But I think they're all detailed on the page. Taoiseach Gal, Western Isles Citizens Advice Service, Tax East, the Food Club, and we also assisted with free school meals by providing holiday top-up payments.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, just to bring this item to a close, Councillor Morrison's been very patient. Ray, were you wanting to come back in? Sorry, but I'm just trying to get this item.
Yeah, the other point I action was that's the island cost crisis emergency funding, which you've just mentioned, and how is this? I mean, somewhere I think on the next page it mentions, how active we are on food banks and how much people put into that, and that's that's fantastic. Unfortunately, the way I look at it is I hope that someday food banks will not be necessary, and they are obviously just now, but it's not something that this country should be proud of.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to bring it to a close. Yeah, it's sad that we're having to do this type of work, but I'm glad the people that are doing it, and that we're signposting people in the right direction. So it's good to see this excellent report. So I'd like to thank Linda and Eilean for all their work on this report, and also all the groups that are working to help people who are suffering poverty. So there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Read. Thank you. Item 21 has already been considered. Item 22. This report is for noting and provides an update on progress achieved in the delivery of the Comhairle's climate change strategy for 2022 to 2027, which was approved by the Comhairle in September 2022 following public consultation, and it provides a strategic direction on climate change mitigation and adaptation within the Comhairle. A climate change strategy progress report for 24 is appended to the report and provides an update on progress achieved to date in delivering against each of the actions in the strategy. The KPI results for the 3 years from 2021 to 2024 are also provided in the report, and Anna Hume will answer members' questions. Are there any questions for Anna? I see no lights. So recommendations agreed. Sorry, do members agree to note the report? Agreed. Thank you very much, Anna, for the report. It was excellent and definitely well worth reading. Item 23. This report seeks approval to submit the completed public bodies climate change duties compliance reporting template 2024 to the Scottish Government. The template, which is appended to the report, seeks to provide an overview of the Corria's progress on climate change in 2023 and covers governance, emissions and projects, climate change adaptation, procurement and wider influence across the Corria area. The template has been validated by internal audit, and again, Anna is available to answer members' questions. Is there anything you want to say on it, Anna, or will I just go? Okay. Are there any questions for Anna on this? No, in which case there's recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Agreed. Thank you very much. Thanks, Anna. Item 24, reports outstanding, and that's just for noting. Agreed. The next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on Wednesday, 5th of February 2025. And I don't know if I'm going to say Happy Christmas and Merry New Year, or Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, but just in case, have a good one. We'll go to private now for the private items. Thanks to all the officers for the reports today.